Right. So those who have been participating in this program for some time, you are aware that we will have a chit chat after the program, and that consists of two main parts. One is I will be talking and you will be listening or yawning or sleeping. And then we both get together and keep talking. So we call it supportive factors. That's the term the Blessed One has used. Call the first one as the listening supportive factor, second one as the discussion supportive factor. These supportive factors are very important for the practice because they clear out whatever doubts we have, and they give some confirmation of your practical experiences, and they add new information or new knowledge to what you're already doing. And also it gives you some support to clear out some of the ways that you have been brought up, some views, strong views you may have. And if any of these things are not working, at least this becomes sort of an intellectual entertainment. And that has been the worst nightmare in the Buddhist world. Everyone is listening to Dhamma talks, but no one is practicing, right? So they don't know where this listening to be linked to, connected to, right? So therefore, there are few songs in Sri Lanka. We keep preaching, we keep listening, but the country is going from bad to worse. That's the simple reason is no practice. So therefore, they don't know how to apply what they listen. On one hand, on the other hand, the preachers are not practicing either, right? So it's two-fold problem. Anyway, we are not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about what we do. What we are practicing basically is mindfulness. For those who practice mindfulness, it is imperative to have some understanding of the four foundations of mindfulness, because that, according to Buddha, directly takes you to the necessary toolkit to achieve the final wisdom, right? So that's the reason why wherever I do a program, the first thing I teach is the four foundations of mindfulness. So some people are fed up of listening it because I have been preaching it for 5 years, and in some places they still keep listening. So the problem is when I start a new one, once again I start from the beginning. Some of the people from other programs join it and they say, you're still talking about the same thing, right? So whatever it is, even here we have been discussing four foundations of mindfulness, but we have come a bit of a long way now. We have done a bit of a summary in the last couple of sessions for the benefit of those who have joined recently, right? So can I request Chatu to just keep that section ready? And in the meantime, I will give you a brief summary of what we have discussed. In four foundations of mindfulness, in fact, the discourse was given to a society where the people were so keen in practicing, and they have been practicing, and they have been practicing different techniques. And to that place, Buddha went and said, there is only one and only way for the purification of beings, for extinguishing of lamentation and sorrow, to getting rid of suffering, to gain the knowledge that ordinary understanding cannot give, and to achieve the final liberation, right? So when they said one and only way, everyone probably may have got shocked, right? Because they have been doing different techniques, and he says there is only one way to do it. And the way he explained was 4 stages of understanding self, right? When we learn what mindfulness is, we know mindfulness is living in the present moment. That living in the present moment of yourself, right? So present moment does not go anywhere. Present place does not go anywhere, right? And the biggest question is, we don't know who am I, right? So he brings the present moment and the present place to that unit called I am, right? So he divides this I am in these 4 sections, right? How he divides is, people will consider that I am is the body. Okay, I will take that. That is what you are doing from morning to evening. And then he gives us a way to look at our body different to the way we have been looking at. When we look at our body, we try to keep it as handsome as possible, as beautiful as possible, right? That's the way we behave. That's the way we do anything, right? He says, no, there are 14 other ways. And he has given 14 other ways. We have discussed those 14 ways, and they are available in our previous talks. And of that, the main one is, or I give at least main 2, 3 are observation of your sitting posture, right? That is what we did a little while ago. While observing the sitting posture, you try to observe the fundamental of living, fundamental of life, fundamental requirement of life, which is the breath, right? When you do that, of course, you go into some layer of yourself. You go into some deeper layer of yourself, right? And then the Blessed One says, although you go into a deeper layer of yourself, you can't live life like that. You cannot be keeping your eyes closed and having your hands on your lap and then observing your breath all the time. There are other requirements of the body, right? So therefore, use that deep understanding, use that deep penetration into the body to be mindful of other postures of the body, like what we did, walking. And in addition to that, lying. In addition to that, standing. Use that knowledge, right? And be aware of how your body is disposed of, right? And then he goes on, says, not only that, you have other semi-activities, semi-postures of this body. Use that penetration of the 4 main cardinal postures to go into the other semi-postures of your body, right? Like stretching your hand. So there are many postures that happens here. Just keep your attention to that. When you look forward, look backward, look sideways, be mindful of that. That's the way you will be with your body, not the way that you used to look at your body, right? And then he has given few others, which I'm not going to take here. So in that manner, we bring our attention, we bring our scattered mind, we bring the mind that goes into the past and the future and to the other places to this unit called body, right? So then both physical and mental processes will be together. And when you do that, when the mind comes to the body, this body is something which is changing all the time. This is an active body. This is a living body. This is why we were born maximum this size and with 7 or 8 kilos. Is that right? And then now we are even 60, 70, right? And how did this happen? When did this happen? Nobody will have any record, right? It happens each and every second. So your attention will go to that. And when it goes there, you will understand that either as a pleasure or a pain. So therefore, when the mind comes to the body, the next thing that you will have is you will see this. When you see that, there will be some reaction from the mind which is already in the body, and you will interpret that as liking or a disliking or a pleasant or unpleasant. And in between, there is a stage called neither pleasant nor unpleasant, right? And that is the entrance to the mind, because you are reacting to the changes that are constantly happening in the body. You will have to be aware of that as well. So in his teaching, in my 4 foundations of mindfulness, the only thing he says is don't react. Just observe no matter what it is, right? So we observe the postures, we observe the breath, we observe the semi-postures. Now it is our leg is going to go into pieces, it is going to blast, but he says, just observe, because he doesn't care. It's a stone here, so he doesn't feel anything. So he has asked for us to keep observing. So we will have to keep observing once again like a stone, right? If you are capable, and it is not difficult, what happens is, if you start going through this and when you are successful with it, the real mind opens up. The mind has been playing in the body. So when you master your body, the mind is losing its ground, right? Our body means nothing but a reflection of our mind, right? We wanted our body to be like this, or our mind wanted to do something. Because of that, our body is like this, right? So it's a simple reflection of our mind. So that habit pattern of the mind has been changed because of the recommendations given by the Buddha, because of our application of those recommendations in our practice. So even the pain means the same thing. Pain is reflection of our mind. When I say reflection of our mind always seeking pleasure, right? So there is something called pleasant feeling, right? But it does not stay all the time, fades away. When the pleasant feeling fades away, unpleasant feeling starts, right? And that also will not be there forever. When that goes away, a pleasant feeling starts. And once again, the cycle is going on without knowing that there is something in between. So we always move between pleasant, unpleasant, pleasant, unpleasant, pleasant. What happens is we don't react to this. Before meeting what Buddha mentioned, we were hanging on to it, we were clinging on to, we were hugging the pleasant feeling and pointing the gun at the unpleasant feeling. Now the gun is thrown away, and even the pleasant feeling we just don't care, just observe. Okay, it is pleasant. And unpleasant feeling also we try to observe as much as possible. As a result, again the mind is challenged, the habit pattern of the mind is challenged. Then the mind starts actually trying to show what it has been keeping inside for us to have this pleasant, unpleasant feelings and to have this body. And that is what we have been discussing. And of course, we have discussed a little bit of that. I will explain, and once again, we will go through that. And can I kindly now request Chatu to read that section in the discourse, please.
And how, bhikkhus, does a bhikkhu abide contemplating mind as mind? Here a bhikkhu understands mind affected by lust as mind affected by lust, and mind unaffected by lust as mind unaffected by lust. He understands mind affected by hate as mind affected by hate, and mind unaffected by hate as mind unaffected by hate. He understands mind affected by delusion as mind affected by delusion, and mind unaffected by delusion as mind unaffected by delusion. He understands contracted mind as contracted mind, and distracted mind as distracted mind. He understands exalted mind as exalted mind, and unexalted mind as unexalted mind. He understands surpassed mind as surpassed mind, and unsurpassed mind as unsurpassed mind. He understands concentrated mind as concentrated mind, and unconcentrated mind as unconcentrated mind. He understands liberated mind as liberated mind, and unliberated mind as unliberated mind. In this,
Me. Right. Uh, these are the shapes and shadows of the mind, right now, which are coming out, right? So there are two categories, although the Blessed One has not very clearly segregated them. There are two categories. One category is the normal category, which feeds our sensual faculties, sensual way of living. And the other section is towards the spiritual development, right? So if you take the first three, basically, they are for the sensual world. Lust, hate, and delusion, right? And always these shades or these shapes or these facets are given in pairs. Lust, mind affected by lust, mind unaffected by lust, right? And hate, mind affected by hate, mind unaffected by hate. Mind affected by delusion, mind unaffected by. What does that mean? And even for all others, there were pairs. And what do you mean by this? The meaning is both these are in the same mind, right? The mind takes the shape of lust, and in some instances, and the same mind takes the shape of without lust, right? So it's just the same thing changing into a different thing, like a chameleon, right? With when it is with green, it is green. It's going out to dry grass, changes the color, right? It's the same thing happens in the mind. If lust arises, you will have lust, and after some time it goes away, and it will be mind unaffected by lust, right? So this clearly shows the duality in our mind. This clearly shows that anything that comes in the mind goes away, but because of our habitual pattern of craving, we don't see. We take only one side, right? If we like lust, we only want lust. If we don't like lust, we hate it, right? Then the hatred comes. And even the hatred will not last forever. And it will go away. And they will have a mind without hate, right? So what the Blessed One therefore says is, when the lust is there, you don't try to shoot yourself, or you don't try to chase the outside party or outside the thinking that comes to your head. That is what the world is doing, right? They are trying to get people to dress well, right? They are trying to instead of developing your mind, they want the TVs to show only proper programs, not unnecessary programs. So they try to change the world. But Buddha says is, you can't change the world. You just look at yourself. Look what is going within you instead of trying to change the world. So therefore he says, if you are affected by lust, maybe because of an idea that has come in your mind, and just be aware that it has affected you and it is there, and it's not a crime. That is how the mind works, and just keep observing. Because of that, because of the fact that you keep observing, you yourself will be able to fade away. And once it fades away, you forget to observe the rest of it. Because it was so colorful when it was last, and you, since the Buddha has said, you have been observing. And since you think it's a bad thing, okay, you somehow or other try to observe it and be mindful, or it's gone and all done. He says, no, once it is done, once it fades away, just keep observing and keep observing even after that, and be aware, mainly, very importantly, that it is not affected by lust now. So therefore, you will be able to see the whole spectrum rather than just only one side. Because we are always, our way of thinking is paralyzed. We see only one side, the side that we like or the side that we don't like. And the other side we just ignore. Instead, he asks you to see the full picture instead of just one side. So this is why so once you start doing that, you will have an unaffected mind for lust as well as mind unaffected by lust. Right? So you will not be shocked by either of those. Similarly for hate, right? And when the hate is there, try to observe it. And then it will go away, and then be aware that it is not there. Right? And then when these two are not there, you feel sleepy, you feel bored, you feel lethargic. And when you sit, you just slither down, right? Because there is no energy. You will have energy only if you are worked up or if you have lust. Right? So when those two are not there and you don't react and you just keep observing, so now mind is not having anything to gear you up, anything to trigger you, right? So mind just sleeps, and you feel now mind thinks that it is time to sleep and everything will be done, and you just will be slouching, or you feel lethargic and you feel drinking some water, you feel going to the toilet, you feel bored. All this happens when the delusion starts setting. That's again a shape of the mind. And mind you, lot of people think that it is your mind, your practice is not working when this is happening. In all these things, you think the practice is not working. Actually, they are progress in the path. Right? So when those things are there, what you will have to do is, okay, my mind is asking me to drink water. My mind is asking me to go to toilet, especially while walking. Right? When we in a retreat, if we ask people to walk for 1 hour, most of the people will walk only 20 minutes. They will be having a tea, they will go to toilet, they will do all sorts of things. Then in the last 20 minutes, they just come and do some jogging to catch up with the other people. So that's not what you will have to do. Okay, of course, you will have to answer call from nature, that's all right. But set a time. Okay, I will be walking for 55 minutes. Nothing is going to happen just because I keep walking. And in the last 5 minutes, I will go and do that and come back. Right? Instead of going in between, because especially walking is so lethargic sometimes. Right? So you will have to give that challenge and be aware that your mind is now in a deluded situation. So just keep observing and keep walking. And when the delusion is not there, and just observe that as well. When you don't feel sleepy, you have been feeling sleepy, you have been feeling bored. And when you keep observing that, even that might fade away, just be aware of that as well. Right? And then if you can go through these three, those are on the sensual side, then you will be reborn into the spiritual world, right? So that is why your mind is scattered. Now, when this happens, you don't know whether you are living in this world or you are living in some other world. Your sensitivity is so high because there's so many things are coming, because you don't take lust, you don't take hatred, right? You are not deluded either. So many things are coming your way, and you think it is a mistake that you started to become mindful, because things are so attractive. I remember one day, Lian was saying that she was just going going in the city, and other people are just passing like zombies, and you just keep walking because you don't take any notice of those things. Mind is now cleared of those things. You don't get hooked into those things, right? Mind is so unaffected, right? So when those three are gone, hatred, delusion, and lust, hatred, and delusions are gone, two things might happen. One is scattered mind, or what's the other one? No, not unscattered, restricted mind. Yeah, either scattered, you feel that you are a different person in the world, or you will be contracted mind. You will not open up yourself much into the society, because if you go to the society, it is going to be very different. So just try to be very very restricted to yourself, right? So when that happens again, you will think it is not working properly, it is not what I was looking for from the practice, right? And how it appears in your practice is, when you sit, if you will not be able to bring your attention to the breath, you will not be able to bring your attention to the pain, you will not be able to bring your attention to the thoughts that are going on. It's so scattered. Now you cannot concentrate on anything. That is the scattered mind, right? In the practice. Contracted mind means you cannot keep your body proper, right? It just that you can't sit up straight, sit upright, and it always falls down. It always falls down, and you are aware of it. But now, when you are really sleepy, when in delusion, also the body falls down and your head drops down. Then you don't know. But in contracted mind, you know, but still you feel like you are a drunk person. Even if you want, you can't lift it. That is a contracted mind. So what you will have to do is, what Buddha says is, be aware, right? And when you practice, try to observe the point at which you enter into this, point at which you go into this, right? So it will happen if you keep on practicing. There will have a time that you will be able to see exactly when your body loses its balance. And if you can wake up into that and you get rid of the delusion that is there going into that situation, right? There will be a slight delusion even there. So even that will go away, right? So the simple technique is continue the practice. No matter what happens, continue the practice and be prepared to be observant of going into that state, right? And then the next one is, if you can go through that, then the next stage is you are getting into the real spiritual path, right? Which is, I think, is it exalted mind? Yeah, exalted mind. Exalted mind means you will be able to see the leg movement. You will be able to see the breath. Not only that, you exactly label it as in breath, in breath, in breath. You exactly label it as whatever the walking labeling that you are doing, and you exactly see the details of it. This is how I feel the in-breath. In-breath is when it is going on, it goes only in one nostril, if you're observing the nostril, and it is very cold, right? And if you're observing the leg, I can very clearly see it comes off the ground, and when it comes off the ground, comes like a plaster coming out from the skin, and then it just floats in the air and slowly goes down, and the heel goes first, and then the rest of the feet. And then you see, once it is completely flat on the ground, you see it completely absorbing whatever is there on the ground. So you feel coldness on the sole of the feet, and then you keep on doing that and keep on labeling. Your mind is with that. No lust, no hatred, no delusion. You are completely awake. You're on the path. You're on the what you call object, right? And that gives some happiness, that gives some bodily pleasure, and with those things you are very focused on what you are doing. That's the first stage of coming onto the path. And then when you keep on practicing, you feel, you understand, now no need for me to label, I can just let it go and just be with that bodily happiness or bodily pleasure and the mind happiness. And after that, you feel, I can just, even the bodily happiness will go away, you will, bodily rapture will go away, you may be with your happiness in the mind, right? So like that, your path will keep progressing. When it keeps progressing, whatever that has been there as a gross factor will drop down, right? So I'm just giving a very quick summary. I have discussed these things in detail in my other talks. So in that manner, your path is progressing. So this is exalted mind, and the mind is working so perfectly fine. All of a sudden, lust comes, and hatred comes, and all that goes out the window. Right? It becomes an exalted mind. Right? Yes, I think it's unexalted mind. Correct? No. This is exalted mind and unexalted mind. Yeah. And which means, like the other ones, hatred and without hatred, and lust and without lust, and delusion and without delusion, even when you come onto the path, it is not permanent. It is just a shape of the mind. And that will also change. Anytime the other things may come up. So the Buddha is saying, try to ride that wave as well. You have everything going fine, you are on song. And when everything goes wrong, you still will have to be on song. That is what he's teaching, right? But when we think, okay, we practice, we have this problems, and so because we practice, everything should get solved because of that. No, he says those problems will be there. Of course, your progress will be there on the path, but those things may creep in. So what you will have to do is, you will have to stop poking your fingers in it. That is what I am teaching. So therefore, when it is good, okay, accept that it is good, going well. It is getting bad, accept that as well. So he says, when it is unexalted, just be aware of that as well. And if you can do that, that mind becomes surpassed mind. That mind is superior than your exalted mind. Because even if the exalted mind gets scattered, gets destroyed, now you are not changing. You are not affected. Right? Then it becomes a surpassed mind. So then you will just, things are happening around. You just sit like piece of paper or a puppet, right? And again, that might change. All of a sudden, something, some hidden thing, hidden defilement we have, hidden negativity we have, hidden weakness we have, might be tapped by something happening around us. That's, I'm going through that now at the moment. So, so when that happens, all that unsurpassed mind also goes away, goes out the window. Right. So when that goes out the window, why that comes is to check the superiority of mind, of your unwavering mind, superiority of your non-reactional mind, because these are not things that someone is giving you. Those are the same shapes that you have in your mind, right? And they are always there in the mind, but we have been always reacting to them. But Buddha is trying to teach the non-reactional way for these things. So why that surpassed mind becomes unsurpassed is to check your strength. Initially, you will react. By reacting, you know, okay, I'm not up to the job still. Then you will have to be a bit more prepared and know your weakness. And then next time, a similar thing will happen anytime. So I have got to be ready to label as quickly as possible. I've got to be ready to be mindful as quickly as possible, right? And then you ride that wave as well. You see that duality and you ride that wave as well. So if you ride that wave, now we are on the topic today. So now only I came to the topic that we should discuss today. And that is, what is that? Concentrated mind? Concentrated mind and unconcentrated mind. And it's not actually, the word concentration is a bit too narrow for me. It is rather than concentrated mind, I would say the settled mind, right? Not concentration means you have just one object and you are on the object, right? Now, this is not on the object. Don't care whatever happens outside. You are unaffected by things, right? It's basically a settled mind. The Pali terms you use are samahitang and asamahitang. Samahitang means there is a quarrel around. There is a disagreement in the group, in the meeting, and somebody comes up and settles the issue. And that is samahitang. And that is what is happening even here. All these pairs have been fighting. And you have developed a skill to settle all these things without taking any one side. So using this way the mind works, you have developed a power. In other words, when sunlight is there, it's sunlight everywhere. Oh yes. But when it is taken to a solar panel, it is solar power, right? When the stream runs, everyone jumps and do all sorts of things. But once it is turned into a turbine, you use a turbine and you can take electricity. It is there in the thing that is already going on. So we have that in our mind. So using that duality, using that shapes and shades going from one extreme to the other, we are using that to ride that wave and build up a power which is called the settled mind or concentrated mind, if I may use the same word, right? And that is the name of our group as well. We call it Samahita. Samahita means equipoise mind, right? We come to an equilibrium of the mind, not affected by that side, not affected by this side, right? And it's like, if I give another example, when you take a piece of iron, if you keep rubbing that onto one side, the atoms will get organized, and the things with magnetic, yeah. Magnet atoms will go to one side and others will go to other side, and it becomes a magnet. And once again, if you shake that iron piece, it becomes a normal one. So the same thing in our mind, we have now touched onto one side, stroked onto one side, and developed a shape, right? Or if I may say, we had some speed, right? Now we have directed that speed, and it is now no longer speed. Now it is a velocity. Velocity is the speed that is directed, if I'm right, to a certain direction, right? So the same thing we are doing here in the concentrated mind. They use the ability of the mind to bring this equipoise situation. So when you do that, that will give you again, you will have this equipoise situation. And how do you know that you have equipoise situation? You have a very settled mind, all done and dusted. How do you know that it is equipoised? Only when you lose it. Right? You know that you had equipoised mind a moment before. In the next moment, you lose it. So the loss, the side that we see as negative is not actually negative. It is simply showing the relativity of our mind. Right? We will not understand the good side of the mind unless the bad side is there. The word bad has a meaning because there is a word called good. Right? The good does not have a meaning if the word bad is not there. Right? So therefore, all these are relative. Right? All these are showing the duality. So the Buddha is trying to go away from this relativity, trying to go away from the duality, right? And he is not trying to go to non-duality. He is not going to go to non-relativity. He is teaching us to make use of that same thing and try to be away from it. You can't change it. It is the nature of living beings. You can't change it. But you can, you have the skill being a human being to go above animal, so which is unaffected by this relativity, right? So when you lose once again this equipoised mind due to another hidden defilement which we did not know, right? It will not be as bad as in the past because already you have a settled mind. And most of the time you will see your mind is pushing for things. Your mind will be asking to do this, and it will be so troubling in your mind. And sometimes you may feel even your brain cells are drying up, right? Because it is not no longer coming out as verbal. It is no longer coming out as physical, right? Even if it comes out as verbal and physical, it has a very low intensity. But inside, you will have a very strong feeling, right? So then you know that your equipoise status have gone. It has become unequipoised, right? So when it becomes unequipoised or unconcentrated, then what Buddha says is just be aware, right? You had equipoised mind and you have a value for equipoised mind because you lose it. Now you have lost that. And when you lose it, if you now once again start crying, instead of understanding that it is the nature of the mind, you are not my disciple. For you to become my disciple, you will have to just be aware of that as well. An equipoised mind is also not something that will be there permanently. That will also change. And can you be unaffected by that? So if you can be unaffected by, even when the settled mind is gone, or the equipoised mind is gone, the concentrated mind is gone, then only you will be liberated. That is what the last one, liberated mind. And how do you know that you had a liberated mind? Again, that will go away. That liberation, also all of a sudden, something that you never thought will happen. Happened to even Buddha. He is Buddha, struggling for so many years, so many eons. He became Buddha without a teacher, on his own. And even after that, when he was meditating in the jungle, he had a thought, these stupid kings are unnecessarily taxing people. If I were the king, I would have given them a good life without taxing. Then immediately he realized he's going on the wrong path. Right? So it is something that happened to Buddha. There is no need to talk about us. It is possible. But what is important is not to worry. These are possibilities. Even if you are liberated, unliberated mind has to come and tell you that you are liberated. But now the advantage we have is you have developed the skill necessary. Sunlight is now a soul of power. So you can use that skill to ride the wave and stay unaffected. Right? So that is how the Blessed One is saying that you will have to go through the different shapes and shades of the mind. So when these things happen, when liberated mind gets affected, what you will have to do is mind will be coming out with billions of suggestions, and it will come and say, take this decision, take that decision, and give billions of justification for the decision. Or it will show you that it is your right or it is your responsibility. So that is especially when you sit and practice, so many suggestions will come and try to make you make some mind fabrication, right? So you will have to simply be aware that you are now not liberated. These things are trying to hit you. These things are trying to take over you. So just keep on accepting them. So therefore the Blessed One says, when that happens, he has given a discourse. In that discourse he says, in Pali, what he says is, Kummova angani sake kalape samadaham bhikkhu manovita, which means the practitioner will have to handle the mental fabrication like a tortoise around jackals trying to eat him, right? When a tortoise is there in the jungle, do you call it tortoise or turtle? When a turtle is there in the jungle, all these jackals will come in and try to eat, right? So when the jackals are there, the turtle will not come out and say, hey, if you can catch me. He immediately retrieve all the limbs into the shell. That way, the practitioner will have to be at guard at the door of the mind when these mental fabrications pops up as suggestions, as decisions, you as ideas, you will have to just be aware of it, just keep labeling. Otherwise, we get dragged onto it, which happens to me now, gets dragged onto it, and we start making decisions and doing things. right? So we will have to be like a turtle who retrieves our limbs into the shell, so that our liberation of the difficulties created by mind can be quietly handled, right? So with that, I would like to sum up the talk, and the talk on what you call how to be mindful of the mind, right? So the next time we will be going into even a stronger and very important area, the last area of the four foundations, which we call Dhammanupassana. What's the term given there, Chatu? Mind objects, right? So which is again a finer way of explaining the three things that we have already discussed, right? So we will start that in the next session. So hope this has given you some insight into your practice, or at least it will add some additional knowledge, or you may be able to intellectualize some of the things that we have said. So with that, we can have a chit chat now. If you have any questions or any report on the practice, and I would like mainly to have a report on the practice before going on to any questions on the talk or any general questions. So can you tell what's happening in your practice? Can I go to Sanjay, if you don't mind first? Yeah, he will bring this thing. This is not to put.
When I began walking, what I observed is that when I first began, the speed at which I was walking, I initially started walking very quickly, thinking that this was the right way to proceed. But then I realized that I wasn't very mindful of anything really, more so just that I was moving in the right correct manner. Then my attention turned towards my feet and the sensations that I felt as I walked, and I could retain that my concentration on my feet for very short intervals. And whilst I was maintaining concentration towards my feet, distractions and thoughts regarding my work and family and life began to come into my head. And sometimes they would remove concentration away from my feet for a long time. And after sustained period, I had to remind myself to retain concentration. I would say last week when I was practicing for a very small period of time, I was able to maintain good concentration, which felt very calm. This week I struggled to even attain that because of I guess things happening outside, but failing to achieve that enabled me to see that duality, that it's not a permanent thing, and secondly that without right concentration you won't get that calmness of the mind. So that would be my feedback.
That's fairly good. You have been able to see some of the things I mentioned in the practice as well. But my comment is, you're talking more about concentration, right? What we do here is practicing mindfulness. So if we take the perspective of mindfulness, although concentration is not there, although you have not been able to maintain your attention with the walking or the sensation of the feet, you were aware of it. That is what we want, right? So you were able to very clearly say your thoughts were around work, around family, around the other things happening. So although you have lost the object that you're supposed to keep your attention to, you are attentive to the other things. But now the mind comes and says, although you are attentive, mind is not allowing you to appreciate mindfulness. Mind is trying to tell you, hoo. That is why you are talking about concentration. Because the mind says, having the attention to the leg is the mindfulness. No. Mindfulness is being aware, which you are. So now what you will have to do is, you will have to start appreciating that fact. Okay, oh, I'm not here, I'm there, but still I'm aware. Right? So therefore, if the mind goes away unintentionally, don't worry about it. Just be aware of it and see what happens. And if you try to bring your attention to the leg, it becomes tug of war. On this side, the thoughts are coming, and on this side, mind is trying to come to the leg. But if you say, no, okay, I'm on train of thoughts, I'll watch the movie that my mind is showing, then immediately it will lose its strength and it will naturally come to your leg. And then you can quietly observe the sensation of the feet. Right? And that immediately give you the serenity that you have been looking for. Right? Otherwise, mind use that craving for the sensations on the leg to confuse you, to disturb you. So that is how the mind is creating suffering for us. So we accept whatever that the mind is creating. And the important thing is, when you said you were able to see the sensation on the feet, you will have to exactly identify what this sensation is and see to what extent you feel that in the neck. So that is next time. And see for how long you can keep it and see how it is affected and whether you can be mindful as soon as it is affected. Right? So going well. And do you have similar thing for the sitting, or is it different?
I would say yes. A similar feeling.
I found with my walking, so this week I was on the one path like you suggested. I think my experience was quite similar in having some moments of mindfulness about the walking and the sensations under my feet and in my legs and in my hips. And at other times, my mind was quite distracted, thinking about things outside. But then accepting that that was where it was and allowing the thoughts to more gently come back to mindful thoughts. In the sitting, I found it much easier to stay mindful. I think focusing on that one sensation of the breath is a little bit easier than trying to be mindful of my whole body or constantly shifting that mindfulness from foot to foot. It was just a little bit easier to concentrate on one thing to be mindful about rather than shifting where that mindfulness exists.
Yeah, thank you for that. And the same comment that I gave to Sanjay will apply so far as the walking and if it is affecting the sitting as well. But the last comment you made, that sitting is easier than the walking, is the personal qualities, personal characteristic. Right now, all of us have some preferences, right? So the discussion is trying to bring those out and understand the personality, right? So why we do is sitting and walking is sitting is something, of course, you are right. It gives a lot of serenity, it gives a lot of peace because we come out of this hassle in the world, right? All our sense faculties as much as possible controlled. So we go into a different aspect of our way of living, but that we can't live that, right? So you will have to take that serenity to the day-to-day life. To take that serenity to day-to-day life, we have a bridge. That bridge is walking. So in there, what we do is, it is not as controlled as sitting. It is semi-controlled, but still we try to bring our attention to the walking process and see whether we can be mindful. Initially, it is difficult for some people, or I would rather say, rather than difficult, our mind is trying to like what we want to like, right? But so some people, it's the other way around, especially young children. They prefer walking because they are so hyped up and they are active. So they don't like keep sitting and observing. They like to observe walking, right? And they say it is easier than sitting. So it's a personal thing. And now, if you can quietly develop that as well, then your sitting is going to get even stronger, right? So these two are complementary to each other, right? And again, I want to emphasize, we are not looking for any peace or calmness or concentration in the mind. We are trying to be aware. So no matter what happens, give a certificate to yourself, yes, I am aware of what's going on. So if that awareness is what Four Foundations of Mindfulness is keep the mindfulness to the fore. So that's the quality that we will have to develop so that we will not get hooked anywhere. Our hook is straightened. Right. So thank you very much. And Leanne wants to say anything about walking and sitting. Yes? Right. Okay. No, that's all right. And we can go to other questions. And if you want to give a report on the walking and sitting, it's okay. Or any other questions Nick can take now.
No, I did have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But I've had such a busy couple of weeks coming out here today.
Yeah.
Just let everything go. So I'm just very peaceful.
Right. Right.
And
Okay.
I don't feel the need to ask questions.
Right. Okay.
I don't want to text you all week.
Yeah. No, I mean, we will take in the forum.
No, I can't. I've just had such a wonderful afternoon.
Yeah. No, I mean, not today. We can take this in some other time.
I'll keep it.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And do you have anything more?
So for walking, what I noticed was initially when I started, was fairly attentive to especially the pressure of my foot on the surface of the floor. I could feel my flesh kind of expand and flatten as it hit the ground. I could feel almost the suction when I lifted my foot off. And I could feel the temperature of the surface. I could feel my toes sort of expand a bit when I was flattened on the ground, when I was flattened on the ground, and lift up as I was walking. But then my mind did its thing, and I had quite a few thoughts that I guess for me revealed a few character traits of mine. But in listening to you previously, you mentioned that it's about accepting and being aware and observing. So I did my best not to necessarily judge how I was feeling or what I was thinking. So I let it pass through. And what I noticed is it was actually not really too much of a struggle. I actually felt quite at ease and didn't even notice the passage of time until the bell went. So that was my walking. My sitting, I obviously sat down. I felt there was quite a bit of, I guess, also serenity that I experienced. I was able to take my attention to the breath, but that was also quite fleeting. The details I did pick up from the breath was that I noticed that the air was cool as it went in and warmer as it went out, left my nostril. My right nostril was where the air actually flowed in and out of. I also noticed a slight, although my breath was very shallow, I felt a slight rise in my chest, and I felt my belly expand and contract. My thoughts also went into play again and took me away from that object, and it became the object. I observed it. I tried to do it impartially, and then eventually the bell went. So my question is, just from the sort of 4 foundations of mindfulness, is it a progressive stage one to the other? So from the body to feelings and in the stages with the mind, do we, as we continue in the practice, do we progress through each step in that order, or does it can it happen almost simultaneously?
Yeah, if I comment on the practice first, which I've forgotten now, I wanted to say something. Walking fairly, you have been mindful. Even sitting, you have been mindful. Yes, what I want to know was you were mentioning about nostril, because feeling air cool, and then you are talking about the chest, and then you are talking about the tummy. So my question is, did you observe them whenever you wanted, or did they just appear? Were they natural occurrences which you had to be mindful anyway?
Initially, it was something that was deliberate, where I brought my attention to it. And then there were moments in between my thinking that it came to me naturally.
Yeah, so the only thing that we will have to avoid is when we observe just one place, right? Either the tummy or the chest or the nostril, right? So once you pick that place, don't change it intention from most, because what happens is when the breath is getting shallow, right? And it's a good observation, because when you keep on observing the same thing, right? When you more and more come out of the external world, you get your energy conserved within. So as a result, you just requires little breath to maintain the body. So that is why it becomes shallow, and that we call, reduction of craving to a certain extent. And then when it is shallower, since it is not gross enough, mind is trying to push you somewhere else, so that where you can feel it gross, right? And then somewhere else, right? So then if you do that intentionally, just because the mind is telling, then mind is playing game. I mean, it's not serious thing, but it is trying to break your flowing mindfulness. But if it happens naturally, without your control, the only thing you can do is be aware, right? So it might happen naturally as well. So and then you will have to just let it go. So that's the only comment I wanted to mention about sitting. And after that, you were talking about the thoughts that are coming up, and that's all fine. We have discussed about those things in detail. And the question was whether these things are happening progressively. right? So I'm teaching it in a linear fashion, right? So therefore, one might get the impression that it should be linear as well, and it should be one after the other. But it can happen one after the other, but not necessarily. It depends on the personality. For some people, especially for me, it was a hell of a task to bring the attention to the breath, to bring that attention to the sole of the feet. It was all over the place, right? Very difficult. But for some people, they bring the attention very quickly. And for some people, they can't bring at all. And their mind is playing so much. When I was on a retreat with my teacher, there was a guy who was in the same room. And for 3 days, he was just so upset. And we're not supposed to talk. So I had to talk to him and ask why. Then he said, look, my practice is not going well at all. Then I asked, what's wrong? No, I can't bring the attention to the breath. Then I asked, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Whether you are labeling and whether you are letting it happen naturally. And he said, yes, I'm trying all that, but nothing is working. Then I asked, what is happening? Then he said, so much of thoughts are coming out. I can't do anything. Then I told him, observe the thoughts. Then that afternoon, he was so happy. Then he asked, now what's up now? And he said, no, I observed the thought, and then it became so peaceful. And even the breath started appearing after that. So we start fighting. Therefore, our breath is usually subtle. Who knows how long we have been practicing in the past, in our past lives. So therefore, sometimes when you sit, we may not be able to observe the breath. We may have passed that already long time ago, right? So therefore, maybe some people will start with thoughts and then come to breath. So then after that, the important thing I told was, when you present it, don't tell the teacher that observe thoughts, he will kill you and me both. And I told him, don't tell, I told you as well. And then I told him, you present it this way. For 3 days, I was trying to observe the breath. It was not possible. This is what was coming prominent. And then I started observing the thoughts. And then this happened. So he accepted it because it said, I have tried for 3 days. So like that, the answer is, it may happen progressively, it may not happen progressively, right? And if it is happening progressively, it does not take 100 years to progress. It may happen in 2 minutes. You observe the breath, and then you start feeling some horrible sensation, and then you observe that, and so much of thoughts are coming up that it may go so fast as well. Right? So therefore, there is no just one line that you can draw on the practice. So this is why I get each and every one of you to talk about the practice, because that is so unique to you. As you said, it's only the personal traits are coming. That is what we will have to take out. Thank you. Right. So any other questions? Yeah, Buddha.
How can these principles of mindfulness be applied effectively to lay life for lay people?
That's a very good question. The 4 foundations of mindfulness was delivered to lay people, because it was a market town where everyone was practicing something else, right? Although he is using the word bhikkhu there, they were not monks, right? A few monks may have been there, and for So then only Blessed One delivered this, right? And to go a little bit further into the question, our main mindfulness objects are breath or the sitting posture and the walking, which is universal. It does not discriminate between lay and monk. No gender discrimination, no color discrimination, no religious discrimination, no ethnicity. It is a universal thing, right? So anybody who is breathing is able to observe that. Anyone who is able to walk are able to walk. So mindfulness is something for everybody. So this is why in Four Foundations of Mindfulness, the word the Blessed One uses is Sattanang Visuddhya. Sattanang means all the beings, not even human beings. Anybody who can hear this message, right? If they can understand it, they are able to practice. So for lay people, if you do these two practices, it becomes, you change the way of living. You try to be aware of things rather than being more concentrated onto things. So when you try to be aware of things, it naturally cascades into your day-to-day activities. When you brush your teeth, when you take a shower, when you eat, you naturally become mindful of what you are doing, right? And then even at work, you naturally become mindful. Don't try to be mindful, right? It naturally comes. You can try to be mindful when you do your physical things alone, such as brushing your teeth or taking a shower, or even urinating and defecating. You can be mindful, and those are things that Blessed One has given in the discourse. You can be mindful even on those things. Then only he says it is not just being mindful. He says it is continuation of mindfulness. And he has given a special word for it, clear comprehension. So mindfulness does not break, right? So therefore, the simple answer is there is no discrimination at all, and so far as mindfulness is concerned. Are you happy with, or do you have any? Thank you. Anything else? Right. Good that Lian is postponing her question, so we can have them in the next session. And we will, since already 9:35, to conclude the session, we will transfer merit, which we call sharing the positive energies we have gathered from our practice and from this discussion with who can absorb these energies, and let them be happy, let them be well, let them be peaceful, let this path of Dhamma be open to them and thrive in it and be rejoicing what we do as well. So with that in mind, we will chant the traditional stanzas, Itta Utacha.